Welcome back with a smiling face. Links to previous episodes are given in the video description, so don't forget to like, subscribe and share the video. Mate of the Forbidden Alpha. This is the sequel of The Luna in the Shadows. Blurb. Tell me you're mine. Tell me you're mine and not his. My ear was assaulted by James's possessive growl. I can't, I whispered as he inserted his finger into my damp folds. I will have you eaten. Even if it means annihilating the whole council. James Lance Vinci, the Alpha Prince, always knew that the arrival of his partner would change his life forever and that she would be the only woman he would ever adore. He never anticipated that she would be owned by the Black Council and would be betrothed to another Alpha. He was unconcerned about the chance that he might lose everything he had previously possessed. All he wanted was his friend, and he intended to claim her as his own, even if it meant doing so with his last breath. Since her parents were forced to join the dangerous Black Council, Eden Cross's life was far from simple. She was always aware that she belonged to the council and that she would have to wed the man they selected for her. She never wanted to meet her partner, but fate had other plans for her because she did meet him, and he turned out to be one of the most potent alphas in history. Episode 1. Eden's POV, the Council. The Black Council. My home. A home that often brought pain to my life, a home that I often wished wasn't the only place I had to stay. Fighting just to stay alive wasn't the way I wanted to live my life. Seeing my brothers forced to kill others just to protect themselves and their family wasn't something anyone would wish to see. They weren't okay, they were strong on the outside but really inside they were hurting. I knew that each of them were seeing the innocent faces of the young boys every day whom they were forced to kill on just their first week of joining the council in order to survive. It was not like they wanted to, we all had no choice, it was the decision that was made for us when our father had joined the council years ago. The council had many rules, one of their main one being, kill, or be killed. Though all of these experiences left me with scars within, nothing really scared me more than knowing that I'd never belong to anyone other than the council, not even my own mate would have claim on me. It didn't seem real until the day they tattooed their personal dragon symbol onto my neck, directly above the spot my mate was supposed to lay his claim on me. I remember crying my eyes out. It wasn't an easy thing to come to terms with the fact that you could never have a mate, or the fact that you'll have to marry whomever the council chose for you. Despite it all, I still remained strong for I knew I wasn't the only one with this pain. My sister Isabella had the same horrible experience. None of us had it easy, we were all suffering. Still, I decided that I would be able to go through with it. As long as I never met my mate I would be able to go ahead and marry the man the council chose for me. As long as I didn't meet the werewolf destined to be mine, I could swallow the pain and move on. But Faith had other plans for me, for I did meet him. Under the worst circumstances I'd met him, he'd been on the ground tied in chains at the mercy of the council, and he was none other than the brother of the mate of my sister Lucy, the sister I hadn't seen in years, the sister I'd grieved for, the sister our family was all incomplete without. We had finally been reunited with her even though it was for a short period, but in that short period I'd met him. I touched the dragon tattoo, and closed my eyes as images of the man with warm deep green eyes that could be easily mistaken for blue haunted my thoughts yet again. Alpha Prince James Lance Vinci, my mate. Images of his rugged handsome features crossed my mind and I immediately pulled out the brushes and paint out of the drawer in front of me. I pushed my wardrobe to block the door from opening as my eyes zeroed in on the wall in front of me. And then I began painting, working my fingers with the brushes, letting them do their magic, letting all my feelings pour out of me and into my masterpiece. When I was done, I stood back and stared at the image in front of me. My heart ached as I stared back at my mate. Even here his eyes looked pained, for it was the only look I'd seen on him, the only way I remembered him. On the ground with chains all over his body, with multiple guards holding him down, his mouth was wide open as he roared to be released, roared to be near me. I closed my eyes and parted my lips as images continued to flow through my mind. Slightly tanned skin, full pink lips, sharp jaw, narrowed nose, thick dark brown hair with golden highlights. He was a masterpiece, my mate. Eden. I jumped in my spot at the loud call of my name. I was so lost in my thoughts of James that I hadn't heard any footsteps. I jumped at the first knock and hurriedly moved the wardrobe over the wall to hide my painting. I quickly opened the door and came face to face with one of the council's personal servant. "The prosecutor has requested your presence," she told me. "You must do quickly, it's urgent and he doesn't want to have to wait another second for you." I nodded, my heart already beginning to race in my chest. It was never for any good when the prosecutor called me to see him personally. I always panicked right before the meeting. Without a second thought, I pushed my way through the door and shut it behind me as I rushed past all the statues in the narrow pathway and made my way to the dreaded meeting room, where most of the council's important meetings were held. I took a deep breath before knocking on the black door in front of me. "Come in," his cold voice echoed. I pressed on the handle and spotted him at the window, petting Spade, the black crow. I bowed on entrance, something that was required every time we were in his presence. "What can I do for you?" I quietly asked, clasping my hands tightly together. He continued to stare out the window, not sparing me a single look. "As you know, you've already been promised to Hunter. This is not something that we have ever hidden from you or your family." I stiffened at the mention of the heartless alpha who was often given the name of a monster for his evil ways. "Yes, prosecutor." "Good," he muttered as he continued to stroke Spade's head. "Then you shouldn't be surprised with what I'm about to say." I held my breath as I waited for him to continue. "The wedding has been confirmed between both of you. I've already made all of the arrangements with Hunter. As you must have already noticed, measures are already being put in place to prepare for the engagement that's set to take place in 2 days." I held in the fear and pain that threatened to consume me whole as I fought to come to terms with his words. I knew that this day would come to me one day. I knew I had to be prepared for it, and at a point in time I really thought that I was, but all that had changed the moment I'd felt my mate. The moment I'd rested my gaze on him, I just knew that being with anyone but him would completely tear me apart. I would never be prepared for something like this, not today, not ever. James's POV. I jumped into the lake and closed my eyes as I felt the water engulfing me. Images of my sweet mate filled my vision. Her beauty was like no other, a rose among thorns. Images of her beautiful face swarmed through my mind, removing thoughts of anything else. Gorgeous blonde hair and the sweetest lips I'd ever seen in my life, so sweet that I was dying to taste them. And her eyes, God, those eyes were haunting me now, the prettiest shade of green I'd ever seen on anyone in my lifetime. The last time I had seen them they were wide with fear and panic, fear for my own life. Flashbacks of that day still made my body boil with anger, and the water around me was doing nothing to help. I should have been strong enough. Those chains should have never been able to keep me from her, but the things did. The only reason I didn't retaliate was for both the sake of my family and hers. No good would have come out of a fight that day. I wasn't prepared to attack the council. I still wasn't. But that didn't mean I wasn't prepared to fight for Eden with everything in me, now that I'd seen her, now that I'd felt what it meant to have a mate. I didn't plan on letting her go. As I stood perfectly still beneath the waters, I came to the sudden conclusion that I would kill for that woman, kill for her, not only kill, would even die for her. But she wasn't mine. How was that even possible? The one woman that was made just for me, wasn't mine to claim? All because of the Black Council. I pushed myself out of the waters and inhaled deeply. When I finally opened my eyes, Clara, one of my pack members, was waiting for me at the edge of the lake. "What are you doing here?" I asked her, stepping out of the water. "I was worried about you, Alpha," she whispered, her face turning red as she openly stared at my chest. "I told everyone that I didn't want to be disturbed," I explained, unhappy about her direct disobedience. "I just thought that some company would do you good," she replied. "I'm sorry." I sighed. "It's okay. Did Austin bring any news for me?" I asked, hoping that they had gotten some new information about Eden. The last I'd heard was that her marriage had been finalized to Hunter. My knuckles tightened and I felt like murdering someone at that reminder. The moment I'd heard the news, I wanted to go to her, wanted more than anything to rip apart the council and bring her back with me, but my brothers wouldn't let me, said it was a suicidal mission and that it would only put the entire family in danger. I hadn't said anything then, for we had only just escaped the ambush that Alpha Eric had planned to destroy us with. But my patience was on borderline. If I couldn't have her yet, I at least wanted to be near her. Clara suddenly looked down at my question, the expression on her face hard to read. "Yes, he's actually looking for you. That's the last thing I heard from Lucas before coming here." I didn't wait to hear what more she had to say. I rushed out the forest and within minutes was already making my way into the castle. I spotted my brother along with the rest of the family in the living room. This wasn't good. Something was surely up. I could tell by the worried looks on each of their faces. They had no doubt gotten bad news. Everyone stiffened upon seeing me, which only increased my suspicions that the news was about my mate. "What's wrong?" I demanded. "I need you to stay calm when I break this news to you," Austin told me, his eyes guarded. "Tell me." I growled impatiently. "We've just gotten word that Eden's engagement is set to take place tomorrow," my father said when everyone else remained quiet. A muscle ticked in my jaw, my wolf clawing at me to be let out and slaughter all responsible for this. The entire room was dead quiet as everyone prepared themselves for my outburst. "Over my dead body!" I roared. Austin placed a hand on my shoulder. "I understand how you must be feeling, brother. Lucy is insisting we go show support to Eden in this rough time. We will go and make sure we can help her get through this. You don't have to worry, we will take care of her." My entire body stiffened at his words. Why was he speaking like I wasn't going to be there? "I appreciate that, but I'll see to it myself that my mate is okay," I growled, unable to hide my anger. She was my mate, it was my job to protect her, not anyone else's. The tension in the air suddenly increased at my words. I don't think it's a good idea that you go. Austin intervened. Why not? I demanded, even though I already knew what he was going to say. Look at what happened the last time you were at the council, James. You were in chains. I'm positive the council would see it as a threat if they see you there again. I turned to look my brother directly in his eye as I gave him an angry glare. If it were Lucy there right now, would you have stayed at home knowing what was happening at the council? Would you just sit back at home while your mate was being engaged to another man? Austin remained quiet, his eyes swarmed with emotion. I never said that we wouldn't intervene and just let the council give Eden away like that. I just think that this is definitely not the right time. We don't even have a proper solution to this problem yet. He explained. No one is going to stop me this time, Austin. I'm going to the council to see her and no one can stop me. I told him, and I meant every single word. Eden's POV. I was lost in my own thoughts when I'd heard my sister's loud shriek. They're back! Isabella shouted. I followed her gaze outside the bedroom window and spotted my brothers along with my father. If they were back, then it meant that everything must have went well with Lucy and her new family, with James. My brothers had left a few days now, after Lucy had come asking for their help to save her mate and his family. We hadn't gotten word from them since. Needless to say, we were all happy that they were finally back. I didn't wait a second longer as I rushed out the door and raced through the castle with my sister by my side. Within seconds we were outside the castle and into the open where my brothers stood talking to each other. How did everything go? Is Lucy safe? Isabella asked as we both waited impatiently for their response. Our brothers suddenly grew quiet as they turned to face us. Thane eventually nodded. She's safe, everything went well. You know, everything had to go well with me being there and all. Marcus boasted, puffing his chest out as Isabella rolled her eyes at him. I turned just in time to see that Hermano was studying me closely. Without warning, he shuffled my hair and offered me a small smile. He's okay as well. My eyes widened. I didn't say anything. He shook his head at me. You didn't have to, I know you well, Eden. Do not worry, your mate is safe. A slow smile formed on my face as I stared at my brother in awe. He always could read me well. Thank you, I whispered. So what new has happened around here since we've been gone? I was about to respond when the gates suddenly opened. I peeped around my brothers to get a better look. A couple vehicles pulled up and I watched as several big-built men exited them, all of whom were most definitely werewolves. The way each of my brothers stiffened, I already knew that this wasn't an ally or someone that they liked. I held my breath as the men moved to surround one of the vehicles. I continued to watch as the door slowly opened and a man that seemed even bigger than any of my brothers stepped out. The men eventually scattered upon something he said, leaving me with a clear view of the strange man. After a few seconds he finally turned and I was faced with the coldest pair of grey eyes I'd ever seen. A quiet gasp escaped my mouth. From all of the stories and the descriptions I'd heard, this man was most definitely Hunter. The heartless monster, the alpha I was being forced to marry. Eden's POV, his eyes held mine for a few seconds before glancing at my siblings. For a second I saw a flicker of surprise before his cold gaze took over once more. His steps were confident and dangerous as he approached my brothers. His men all walking in tune with him, as though they'd rehearsed it multiple times before. "We meet again." "Unfortunately," Thane growled. "Couldn't get a woman on your own, so you had to let the prosecutor force a bride to marry you, right?" Hunter looked unbothered by his comment. "Says the one who doesn't have a say on his own life, has to follow the rules every single day like a lost puppy." I stiffened at his words. How easily he spoke such bitter things. Did he not know how difficult it was for us to have to follow everything the council ordered us to? How much it scarred my entire family? Of course he knew. He was just as heartless as everyone said he were. A new familiar figure caught our attention and we all looked up in the direction of the castle's entrance. As expected, the prosecutor was already outside to welcome his guests. The tension in the air only seemed to increase at his presence. "Hunter." The prosecutor greeted him with open arms. "We've been preparing for you." Hunter's eyes grazed past my sister before turning to me. His eyes took me in for a few seconds before he walked past me without a single word, almost as if I were dismissed. I could already foresee how I would be treated by him after the marriage. He would no doubt treat me like an object and use me in whatever ways he pleased. A chill traveled down my spine at that thought. I watched as he gave a small nod at the prosecutor. Unlike us, he didn't have to bow to him. Since he wasn't bound to the council like we were, he didn't have to follow their rules. In fact, it almost seemed like the council followed what he said, for his alliance was important to them. "Eden," the prosecutor called, turning his cold gaze on me. "Follow us, let's have a proper introduction between the both of you." I swallowed my fear and frustration and followed after him without a fuss. From the look he gave me, it would seem that he wasn't pleased at all with the way we had greeted Hunter. I could feel the presence of Hunter's men right behind me. They gave off a dangerous aura just like him, making it even more uncomfortable for me. The prosecutor guided us to one of the rooms that was only used for important guests. Hunter didn't seem impressed, so he must have been used to that sort of treatment. "Hunter." The prosecutor started motioning for me to stand opposite the heartless monster. "This is Eden, your bride. We give her to you untouched by a single male and with the teachings instilled in her on how to please you. From the day that she's bonded to you in marriage, she will cut all ties with us and completely belong to you and you alone." Hunter nodded without so much as a smile. In fact, his face was wiped off any emotion. "I presume there is to be no interruption from any outsiders, such as her mate." I froze at his words. Had he heard of the incident with James already? The tension in the air only seemed to worsen at his mention of my mate. Even the prosecutor seemed troubled. "As you can see," the prosecutor said, gripping my neck and pushing my hair out of the way to show off my tattoo. "We placed this exactly over the area her mate's mark is supposed to be, symbolizing that he has no claim to her. If he even tries to do so, the punishment is death for both of them." Hunter nodded, pleased at his response. "Good. Well, now that it's all settled, let's all prepare for the engagement ceremony." I stood there in silence, my heart still racing at the conversation that just took place while they went on with the discussion, as though I wasn't even in the room, as though they didn't just discuss killing my mate and I if he ever tried to claim me. Monsters, they were all monsters. James's POV: was it really wise to come here without our pack members? Lucas drawled lazily, breaking the silence amongst us. "We went through this already. If we came here with the entire pack, it would look like a threat to the council. We aren't coming here for a fight, at least not right now," Austin answered. "Though I would have felt a lot more better if Lucy hadn't disobeyed my orders and come with us." "Not this again, I told you as long as it involves my family I'm coming," Lucy snapped, her pregnancy hormones acting up again. "Yes, I understand that, but you're pregnant, this isn't the place for you," Austin growled. "Aw guys, how about we keep the arguments at home for now, we're already here," Lucas cut in. I followed his gaze and found Lucy's brothers at the gate's entrance to welcome us. The castle was packed, creatures of all kinds flowing in for the engagement of my own mate to a monster. "You guys really came?" Marcus said with a chuckle. "We could do with some excitement around here." I watched as they took Lucy in their arms. "Always a pleasure to see you, sis." The brothers turned to me. "Thanks for coming, but we must warn you to not cause a scene today, it would only end in a lot of deaths from both sides. Control your emotions for now." I nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation, however I wasn't sure if I would be able to control my emotions, not after my last reaction to Eden. Eden's POV, I was in the middle of greeting guests when my body froze, heat traveling from my head to my toes. He was here, my mate was here. I felt him. No, he couldn't have possibly come here. It wasn't safe, not after our last encounter. My eyes traveled to the doorway as they settled on Lucy, my sister. If she was here, then he had to be as well. I continued to watch as I noticed her mate Austin right behind her. I tried to look behind him, for there were two figures hidden behind. I gasped. Austin had moved and my eyes came into contact with James. He was even more gorgeous now that he wasn't bleeding and chained to the ground. Almost as if he felt my presence, his eyes started searching the crowds until they fell on me, and then they stayed there. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, the power of his eyes alone kept me completely glued to the ground. I felt the heat spread as my belly did little flip-flops, his eyes narrowed almost as if he sensed what he did to my body. God! What was I going to do? Eden, I couldn't take my eyes off James. How could someone so magnificent be my mate? I never once expected to have a mate that oozed of such power and masculinity, all the while being so breathtakingly gorgeous. The way he moved, the way his eyes held mine, everything about him just sparked a heat deep within me that traveled all the way throughout my body. "Eden!" the prosecutor called, causing my entire body to jump. "Yes, prosecutor," I responded while forcing my eyes to move from my mate to him. "Do not forget your place, do not ever forget who owns you," he warned. "Do not embarrass the council by giving in to your desires. James could never claim you, what use is there fantasizing over a man that could never be yours?" he asked, his eyes drilling into me. I bowed my head in sadness at the truth of his words. "I understand, prosecutor." "No," he said, shaking his head at me. "It doesn't seem like you do understand, Eden, for you wouldn't be staring at another man while your to-be husband is standing a few feet away. Let me make something clear to you, if you do anything to jeopardize this alliance, James will be no more. I will make sure of it," he threatened. I gasped at his words. How many times would they threaten my mate's life? Fear sparked within me as I wondered why had James decided to come here knowing what had happened in the past? He shouldn't be here. Why didn't Lucy stop him from coming, I'm sure they all understood the dangers of bringing him here on such an occasion. Why hadn't anyone stopped him? Now that we've cleared that up, it's time for the ceremony to begin. Get up on the stage so that we can get on with it," he added roughly. I nodded and followed him straight to the gigantic stage that was set up just for this occasion. Hunter soon joined me, his eyes dark and cold as ever. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen," the prosecutor announced. "We would ask that everyone gives us their undivided attention as the engagement ceremony is about to begin." The entire crowd went completely silent at the announcement, and it only seemed to add to my anxiety. What would James be thinking in his head? How much must it be hurting him to see me here standing next to Hunter? Why hadn't anyone stopped him from coming here? My brothers were in charge of letting the guests in, so why had they let James in? They should have known better than that. I felt my entire body stiffen as Hunter was placed directly in front of me so that we were now facing each other. I didn't want to do this. It broke my heart into tiny pieces to know that I was being engaged to someone I didn't know while my mate stood in the crowds looking on at the entire thing. But what choice did I have? If I refused, things would only get worse. My entire family and my mate would all be in danger because of my actions. There was no way out of this. I had to get on with it, even thought it killed me inside. James had pain seeing Eden in front of the crowd, standing next to a man that wasn't me. It made me feel like a weak man, like someone who wasn't worthy of a mate. How could I just stand by and watch this all happen? But I knew the circumstances of me trying to stop this engagement from happening. It wouldn't end well for anyone. Yet, it was very hard to control my emotions at a time like this. No man in their right mind could just stand by and watch their woman get engaged to another man. When I'd seen her tonight, everything around me had gotten dark, everything except her. She shone brightly, brighter than anyone I've ever seen. Eden was simply a goddess, a princess, an angel that was too good for this world. She was my angel, she was made just for me and the council, as well as the monster Hunter was trying to deprive me of what was mine. It pained me as I continued to look on at the scene unfolding before me, when Hunter reached forward and grabbed Eden's hand to slip the ring onto her finger. Everything within me crashed. Before I could stop myself, a loud deafening growl escaped my mouth, expressing the pain and anger I felt inside at witnessing such a disturbing sight. Lucy's brothers grabbed onto me and shoved me out the door before anyone had a chance to see who had made the noise. "We told you not to make a scene," Hermano growled. "We understand this would be extremely difficult for you to watch, but if you knew you couldn't handle it, you should have stayed outside. Hunter isn't someone to mess with, the council already is against you, the last thing you want is Hunter on your back as well. You need to understand that nothing is going to pain Eden more than seeing you get hurt, remember that." My jaw clenched at his words, but I still remained quiet, knowing that her brothers were right. "How about you take a run through the woods and cool off a little?" Marcus suggested. "It might do you some good. We can't take you back inside there now, we're already in enough trouble as it is for letting you in the first time." My fists tightened at my sides as I forced myself to nod. Without waiting for either one of Eden's brothers to make another comment, I raced off into the woods. When I was deep inside the forest, I dropped onto my knees and glared at the bright moonlight. "Why?" I demanded. "Why did this happen to me?" I asked. "Why take Eden from me?" I roared as I let out all my anger and frustration. What did I ever do to deserve this? I couldn't see any more of this. If I allowed this to happen, I would eventually lose my sanity. I needed some way to make Eden mine. I just had to do it. For the sake of both my mate and I would have to stop this wedding. Eden, my heart skipped a beat at the loud possessive growl that most definitely belonged to James. What was that? Hunter asked suspiciously as he began searching the crowd. Is there something you're not telling me? He asked the prosecutor, his voice cold and harsh. We see these kind of things every day here, it is nothing for you to be concerned about. The prosecutor answered, his eyes cold and distant. Hunter didn't seem convinced and I couldn't blame him. The growl from James could not be mistaken, it was most definitely a possessive one directed straight at us. Hunter wasn't stupid, he wouldn't let that go so easily. My heart ached, I could almost feel the pain that James felt and there was absolutely nothing I could do but stand here next to a man I didn't want to be with. Isabella joined us, her eyes worried as she looked at me. She no doubt knew that the growl had belonged to none other than James. I saw Hunter glimpse at her for a quick second and in that second I caught something that looked an awful lot like desire. That couldn't be possible, however. Hunter was known to be completely heartless. He couldn't possibly want anyone. Besides, he made it clear that we were to be married. He wouldn't be desiring my sister if I was the one he'd asked for. At least I didn't think so. I didn't know him personally, I've only heard stories about the man. However, judging by his behavior, all of the rumors seemed to be true. Can I talk to my sister? Isabella asked. What was she doing? The prosecutor glared at her, obviously angry at her intrusion. It wasn't like Isabella to interfere in these things. Especially after all we've been taught here at the council. Hunter's eyes were on her. This time I was sure I didn't mistake it. He openly stared at her and she knew that for her cheeks were red now. It was not often that I saw my sister flush so easily. Isabella, the prosecutor snapped angrily. This is not the time nor place for an interruption. Isabella jumped at his tone. Without saying another word she turned to leave, her eyes hurt. Wait! Hunter called. His eyes were emotionless as he looked at her. You can talk to her. I have some important things to discuss with the prosecutor. He said as his gaze traveled to him. I already knew by the deadly look on his face that this wasn't about to be a friendly conversation and it most likely would have to do with the fact that James just interrupted our entire engagement ceremony. I needed to find him. I needed to make sure that he left here, it was the only way I could ensure his safety. The council was dangerous. Hunter was even more dangerous. Both of them combined would wreak havoc on all of our lives. I couldn't let that happen. I followed Isabella to the corner of the building, where we were sure no one would be listening in on our conversation, especially anyone that belonged to the council. What's wrong? I asked her. Our brothers are concerned about James. She said at the exact same time Austin and Lucy joined us. Lucy pulled me into her arms. Everything will be okay, sister. She assured me. My brother is difficult to control, especially when he is like this. Austin said. You're the only one who will be able to stop him from doing anything stupid, Eden. He's not in his right senses right now. He doesn't care that he has to go up against the council and Hunter to take you. I don't want to see my brother killed. I will go down with him before I let that happen." His words tore at my heart. James was my mate. The only man for me. The thought of anything happening to him hurt me more than anything else possibly could. No physical pain would be able to match to my pain now. "You have to provide a distraction," I told them. "I need to see him. We will take care of everything here," Lucy assured me. When I was sure no one was looking, I rushed out the door, passing guards who were too busy tending to new guests. I needed to find James. It was hard for me to stand next to another man that wasn't him. I couldn't imagine how awful he must feel at having to witness it all. Where could he be? I decided it was probably best to search the woods first. That's the direction where I'd overheard my brothers say that he was headed. I didn't know how long I was running for. My feet ached just as much as my heart did. I gasped as someone gripped me by my waist and pressed my body up against a tree. By his scent alone I already knew whom it was. James. We stood staring at each other. It was the first time I'd ever felt his hands on me, and I would be lying if I said it didn't awaken every single part of my body. My lips parted and I couldn't find the right words to say. It suddenly occurred to me that James and I hadn't once gotten a chance to actually have a conversation between each other. Now that I was given the chance, I didn't know what to say. My breath caught at how beautiful this man actually was. He was even more breathtaking up close, and it was almost too much for me to handle. My eyes voluntarily scanned every inch of his body. I gasped at what I saw next. It looked as though he'd ripped his shirt, exposing his muscular biceps and chest. What had he been doing here? "You need to leave," I forced myself to say. The hurt look that crossed his face was more painful than someone piercing my heart with a silver sword. "Why?" he asked, his voice rough and musical at the same time. I gasped as his hand on my waist tightened before he stepped closer into my view under the bright moonlight. Our lips were inches apart now, and I had to place my hands on his chest to keep from falling. "You know why?" I whispered. "I'm getting married to Hunter. There isn't any way for us to be together. Why must you come here? It's not safe and it only increases the pain. Can Hunter make your heart race like this?" he whispered, his eyes dark. I couldn't stop the instant arousal that spread straight from my belly to my sensitive core. James's nostrils flared as he gazed at me with so much heat that I was surprised I hadn't turned into molten lava yet. I was positive he knew just what he was doing to my body. His eyes said it all. My gaze traveled to his shoulders, the muscles there flexed as he continued to grip my waist. I swallowed. I desperately wanted to run my hands over it. "Answer me," he growled. I remained quiet, for I already knew the answer. No one, absolutely no one, could make my heart race like him. That fact only made the hurt a lot worse than before. "I know the answer," he whispered hoarsely. "He can't. No one can. You're made just for me, Eden. Only for me." His face was inches away from mine now, his sweet breath mingling with my own. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. His eyes were on my lips. The look he gave me did unspeakable things to my body. He leaned closer and my eyes fluttered shut as I waited almost desperately for his kiss. However, to my disappointment, none came. I opened my eyes to find him gazing down at me. He looked as though he was memorizing every inch of my face. His lips were right above my ear now. "I'll never let him have you," he promised. "You're mine, only mine. The moment he touches you, I'll kill him." "Eden," I gasped as I shivered against his strong hold. I closed my eyes and tried to memorize what it felt like to have him this close to me. I somehow knew that James meant every single word he'd just said. My beautiful mate wouldn't sit by and let another man touch me, and it warmed my heart just as much as it frightened me. I felt his fingers trace my closed eyelids, down my nose and straight to my parted lips. I felt a jolt of shock through my body at such a simple touch. It didn't matter that it was simple, all that mattered to my body was that he was the one doing it. His fingers traveled to my neck but paused there. I heard his sharp intake of breath, which forced me to open my eyes. His shocked gaze was definitely on my neck, and the look I saw there frightened me. He tilted my face gently to the side, his gaze lethal. I could sense the immediate drastic change in his mood. I now understood what he was looking at. He must have seen the dragon tattoo on my neck where his mark for me should have been. What was he thinking? Whatever it was, it wasn't good. "Did they do this to you?" he growled. "James," I whispered. "Did they do this to you?" he repeated, much slower this time. "Why yes, but..." My eyes widened when he didn't wait for me to finish. Before I had a chance to react, he had already shifted into his wolf. My heart ached at his wolf's cry. I could hear the pain and unhappiness that shattered my heart into a million pieces. I needed to get back to the council before he did anything crazy. I was not ready for a fight, none of us were. I didn't want to put the people I cared about in trouble, I didn't want to lose my family. I understood that I couldn't rip my dress, however, it would look too suspicious to the council as well as Hunter. I quickly hurried out of it and shifted into my wolf. I picked the soft material up with my mouth and raced towards the palace. When I arrived, I wasted no time in shifting back and changing back into the dress. So far, I couldn't hear any sort of commotion happening, which meant that was at least a good sign. I hurried inside, where I found Isabella waiting at the entrance for me. "Did James come here?" I asked without a second thought. Her eyes were wide with worry. "Our brothers heard his howl and they cornered him in the woods. Austin and Lucy just left with Lucas. They plan on forcing James to go back home with them. They may have to use force, extreme force, to keep him down." My eyes grew watery at her words. This was for the best. I had to keep telling myself those words to keep myself from running off to his side. This was the only way to protect him from himself and away from the dangers that came with the council. I stiffened as I saw the prosecutor heading our way. "You too," he hissed. "Come with me." Isabella glanced at me with worried eyes. "Did they find out something?" I prayed that they didn't. I could feel my heartbeat increase with each step that we took closer to the room the prosecutor had just entered. Hunter was the first person that I saw. To my surprise, his eyes were on Isabella once more. Something felt extremely off about the way he looked at her. Was I missing something? "The wedding is set to take place in 3 weeks. The prosecutor announced suddenly, catching my attention. My eyes widened and it was difficult to hide my unhappiness at the dreaded news. I didn't want it to be that soon. I didn't want to marry Hunter, I needed time to adjust to all of this. I felt Isabella grip my hand as she squeezed gently on it. It's something that we've always done for the other when we needed support. And support was something you always needed when dealing with the council. They always did something to catch you off guard. Why so soon? I asked before I could stop myself. I knew that the men in the room would be pissed that I'd asked such a question. However, I couldn't help myself. Hunter took slow steps in my direction, he didn't stop until there was only a little distance between us. Is there something that I should know? He asked. Like perhaps, a mate that I need to find out about and maybe get rid of. I felt my heart drop at his question. It was hard to keep a straight face after he'd made such a threat. The more he looked at me, the more I believed that he already knew about James. This could be his way of making sure that I followed through with the wedding without making a fuss. No, I said as I lowered my gaze. There is nothing that you need to know. We will have the wedding 3 weeks from now as you wish. He nodded and turned to the prosecutor. Is that good for you? He laughed without any emotion. Of course it is, whatever you wish we shall do, that was never a question. Isabella cut in. My sister and I were speaking and there is something that we wish to ask for. My gaze snapped to hers in confusion, I didn't remember us discussing anything like that. What was Isabella up to? What is it? Hunter asked, his penetrating gaze directly on her. We would like to visit our other sister Lucy, she's married to Prince Austin Lance Vinci and we barely get any time to see her. We thought that this would be good for Eden, since she may not be able to do these things after she's married to you. The prosecutor reached forward and gripped Isabella's arm roughly. What nonsense is this, Isabella? You're not at liberty to request such a thing and you know it. Hunter's eyes were strained on the prosecutor's hand still gripping onto Isabella. There was anger in the depths of it that totally surprised me once more. Let the girl go, he said smoothly, however his angry gaze and tightened knuckles gave away how he really felt. There is nothing wrong with her request, in fact I think that it may be a good idea. I stared at Hunter with wide, uncomprehending eyes, unsure of what just happened. I was even more surprised at this response. As far as I knew, Hunter would never agree to something like this unless there was some ulterior motive. What exactly could he achieve by Isabella and I visiting Lucy? Even the prosecutor seemed completely baffled by his response. But, Hunter raised his hand to stop him from speaking. There's nothing to discuss. Let the women visit their sister. I see nothing wrong with that request. The prosecutor looked pissed at his words but still managed to nod his head. It was clear that they were willing to go the extra mile to keep Hunter as one of their most prized clients. All right, Hunter spoke again. I guess that's all for today. My men and I have other important matters to deal with, enough time has already been wasted. By other important matters we all understood what he meant. More killing. Hunter was known to be a dangerous killer, that was his job and he was good at it. I shivered at just the thought of being married to a man like that. Now that I was allowed to visit Lucy, things wouldn't be easy. James would be there, how would I ever be able to resist him? Hunter, I pulled at my bottom lip as images of Isabella Cross flashed across my mind. I grabbed a drink from my personal bar and filled the cup till it overflowed. I downed the whole thing in one go, it was the only thing that helped to clear my head. I forced myself to change the direction of my thoughts. My soon-to-be wife was the woman I should be thinking about. After all, there were certain things about her that bothered me. I'd chosen her because I felt absolutely nothing where she was concerned. However, something was off, and I think it had something to do with her mate. I'd had my men spy on her years before. I'd seen pictures. She'd looked clean in the past, clean in that she didn't have a mate. But now her sad eyes said otherwise. Her bright smile had been dampened greatly. The council had promised that there would be no problems where her mate was concerned. I hated to be double-crossed. The growl I'd heard today must have been from her mate, her eyes alone gave it away. I leaned back on my chair and stared at the ceiling. If I wanted everything to go smoothly, I would have no choice but to get rid of him. The problem came with the fact that I didn't know who he was. Which was why I'd agreed for her to leave the council for a week to visit her sister. She would surely try to meet him there. If she didn't, then he would. I'll have my men follow them and keep a close watch on her. Once I knew who my enemy was, I would understand how much force was needed to strike. I refilled the cup and twirled the ice with my finger. Something told me this one was about to be interesting. James, I could feel the rage inside of me intensify as I slammed my room door shut and spun around to face my brother. He pinched the bridge of his nose and leaned against the wall. There were scrapes on both of our bodies after the fight in the woods. Lucy's brothers as well as Austin and Lucas had to hold me down to prevent me from going to the council and ripping each of their necks out from their bodies. They placed a dragon tattoo on my mate's neck, directly above the heavenly mating spot. They all deserved to die, those monsters didn't need a chance to live. They'd went on ahead with their nonsense for far too long, someone needed to teach them a lesson. I struggled to keep control of my anger that only increased by each ticking second like a bomb a few seconds away from exploding. I couldn't get that sick dragon tattoo out of my mind. I wanted it gone, replaced by my own marking. Why did you bring me back here? I demanded from Austin, directing my anger on him. I didn't appreciate my family trying to get in the way of saving my mate. That one time you were separated from Lucy, I never once stopped you from getting her. Instead, I was on your side every step of the way. Then why would you stop me from uniting with my own mate? My brother looked hurt by my words. He took a step closer to me, his eyes sad. My intention was never to stop you from uniting with Eden. My intention was to stop you from getting yourself killed, brother. You're not thinking, you're doing everything without considering the consequences of your actions. He pointed out. I told you that I would help you get your mate, but we need to have a proper plan in order to do so. My knuckles tightened at my sides. I don't know how long I can wait, Austin. I can't see her with someone else, it kills me inside. His eyes softened further as I felt his hand on my shoulder. There is something you must know, it's part of our plan to give you and Eden a chance together. However, you can't mess it up. You'll have to keep your distance from her when she comes here. She's only staying to give us a chance in order to create a plan to help her escape, a plan to get the council to let Eden go. He informed me. A plan that doesn't involve either one of you getting killed. My forehead creased at his words. What exactly are you trying to say, brother? Eden will visit us for a week. He announced suddenly. My eyes widened. There was no possible way that it could be that easy. The council knew that I was her mate, then why would they send her out here knowing that I wanted to take her away? That's bullshit. I spat. You expect me to believe that the council will willingly let her come here knowing that I'm her mate? Austin sighed. We've already gotten word from Lucy's brothers. The prosecutor agreed. But only because Hunter permitted it. That didn't make any sense. Everyone knew the cold heartless beast, he would never give Eden whatever she wanted. There had to be something else that we were missing. I know what you're thinking, Austin said. There is no way Hunter did this without an ulterior motive. My guess is that he already knows that she's found her mate. He will want to get rid of you, but the problem is that he wouldn't know who you are. He must have sent Eden here in hopes of finding you. Which is precisely why I said that you have to stay away from Eden when she gets here, act as though she means nothing to you. I'm sure Hunter's men will be somewhere around. I didn't know how that was even possible. Eden was simply irresistible. There was no way I'd be able to stay away from her unless someone drugged out of me. I needed to discuss things with my pack. They needed to know the trouble that was up ahead. There was going to be a fight, I didn't know when, but it was definitely coming. When will she arrive? I asked as I held my breath while waiting for a response. Austin looked hesitant to tell me, and I understood why. I wasn't happy about it, however. Tonight. My body snapped at his words. Tonight? Where are you going? Austin demanded as he rushed to the doors. I need to have a meeting with my pack. I called over my shoulder. As soon as I walked in the pack house, all eyes turned to me. Alpha, Clara greeted me with shy eyes. We're so happy that you're finally back. I nodded. Where is everyone? I asked her, noticing that the house was completely empty. We hadn't expected you to reach back so soon, she noted. Is everything okay? She asked as she took a step closer to me and placed her hand on my shoulder. I flinched at the contact. It felt weird having someone else's hand on me other than Eden. I gently pulled away from her. I have an announcement to make. Without waiting for her to respond, I mind-linked the rest of pack members. I need everyone gathered here in 5 minutes. One by one they all entered, everyone here before the 5 minutes were up. Lucas looked concerned as he stepped closer to me. As my beta and brother, he understood what this was about. The pack remained quiet as everyone sensed the tension in the air. They would be able to feel my anger and frustration through the link. I think it's time that all of you know that Eden Cross, a member of the Black Council, is my mate and your future Luna. There were gasps all throughout the room. Some looked worried while others looked extremely unhappy by the news. I knew this wasn't going to be easy. A lot of my pack members may refuse to accept Eden. They would see her as a threat to our pack. Do you really think it's a good idea to make her Luna? Jake asked. As our trusted advisor, it was expected that he would be the first to question Eden becoming the Luna. However, his question still angered me. Eden was my mate no matter where she came from. I accepted her for who she was, and everyone here must do the same. I think it's best that you let her go, reject her. He continued. I'm not letting her go. I growled, angry that he would even suggest such a thing. Then how do you plan on getting her out of the council? He asked. We all know how dangerous they are. Even our pack combined with Austin's wouldn't be enough. There would be a lot of deaths on both sides. Eden Cross will join our pack. If anyone has a problem with that, they are free to leave. I hissed. This wasn't up for negotiation. The sooner they realized this, the faster we could move on from this discussion. The room grew quiet at my words. However, thankfully no one made an effort to leave. I didn't want to lose anyone from my pack, they were family. We'd work our asses off to reach where we were, respected throughout the world. We will stand by you, Alpha. Valerio said suddenly. He was the hybrid that had joined my pack recently. He was a big help when Lucy had went missing. He was also able to confirm that Austin had been under a powerful spell. The boy was grateful to finally belong somewhere, and I still believed that I'd done a great deed by bringing him into our family. For now, I had someone that would stand by my side when I wanted Eden to stay with me and rule next to me. To my relief, everyone else soon agreed with him as well. Even Jake, who still didn't seem pleased, nodded his head to help. I smiled. "Thank you," I said. "I don't know the details of our plan as yet, but there will be one soon. Everyone must prepare for a great fight, one bigger than our fight with Ariana's father." I stayed back a little more to discuss everything. Lucas had made sure to show his support throughout the entire thing, and I was thankful that he was here. Later that night I got home and dropped onto my bed with a loud thump. I closed my eyes and thought of the beautiful green eyes that had already made a place in my memory and my heart. I remembered the way Eden's lips parted when I had touched her, remembered the rush to my shaft by just the scent of her sweet arousal. The scent had filled my nostrils, and it had taken all of my self-control not to take her against the tree, deep in the forest. I was suddenly hit with an irresistible, strong aroma that awakened all of my senses all at once. I froze. My mate's scent. I closed my eyes and inhaled deeply. I couldn't get enough of the intoxicating scent. She was definitely here. I wanted her so much that it hurt. It was already starting. Eden, as I walked into the palace, the first thing I saw was James at the top of the stairs, watching me. I felt my body tremble with desire at just the sight of him. The heated look in his eyes completely held me in place. For a moment I couldn't even move an inch. I quickly looked away, however. My brothers had explained to me how important it was that I stayed away from James during my stay here. Even I found it weird that Hunter had agreed to let me stay here. The way he'd spoken, the questions he'd asked, it made me believe that he surely knew about my mate. So why would he let me go on my own without the protection of the council? They'd made sure I remained a virgin, completely untouched. All of that had been saved for Hunter. In fact, the closest I'd been with a man was in the woods with James. I knew it was completely normal that I wanted to be held only by him. He was my mate after all. But it hurt to think of another man touching me. That was something I knew I would have to eventually get used to, and I wasn't sure I would be able to live through that. Without even realizing it, my eyes were on my mate again. I forced my gaze away from James once more as Lucy rushed to my side with a bright smile on her face. She was glowing, the kind of glow that a woman only achieved when she was pregnant and happy. Her baby bump was growing at an alarming rate, but that was normal for werewolves. "I'm so happy that you are finally here and away from that dreaded place," she cried before wrapping her arms around me. I returned her hug, happy to be in her embrace. Having not seen my sister in years and finally being able to be around her was a blessing I didn't know would ever come. Austin, her mate and husband, took my hand in his. There was an edge to him, it told me that he was worried about something. He must be concerned about James. I could already see it in his eyes that he wasn't going to sit back and just watch while I was here. James wanted me and he didn't hide it, he was determined to have me. So, it made sense that Austin would be worried, the safety of his brother would constantly be on his mind. "It's a pleasure to have my mate's sister here with us," he said as he let go of my hand. I smiled, "Thank you for having me." I stole a glance at James once more and held my breath at his penetrating gaze. The man had the power to make me feel things I'd never once experienced before. But more than anything, I loved how much he wanted me. He wasn't afraid to show it, not to his family, not to the council, not to anyone. That thought completely warmed my heart. I've always wondered what it would be like to have a mate that fought for me, to have someone that loved me unconditionally. I let myself dream of these things even though I already knew that I could never have a mate. What hurt more than anything about my contract marriage to another man was to know that James was the mate chosen for me. He was perfect, everything I've ever wanted in a male. He possessed all of the qualities that I admired. I knew this without even having to spend a decade with him. Someone cleared their throat and it was only then that I realized I'd been staring at James the entire time. I tore my gaze away from him to see Lucas grinning at me. The younger brother was a splitting image of both Austin and James. "Well, this is awkward," he noted. My cheeks flushed at his words. I'd definitely been caught in the act. If anyone was watching, I'd already failed the test. It was only a few minutes since I'd arrived and already I couldn't look away from James for even a few seconds without turning back to him. Lucy looked as though she was trying not to laugh. "You'll get used to Lucas, trust me," she teased as she playfully hit his arm. He grinned at her. "I always knew you liked me since the very beginning." "Lucas?" Austin growled, annoyed by his comment. He held up his hands and grinned. "What? I was only speaking the truth." He grabbed a bowl of nuts from the table as he waved at us, walking backwards. "I'll see you guys later, enjoy!" he shouted as he continued to wave. "My parents aren't home right now. As soon as they return with my sister Maya, they will give you a proper introduction and a tour of the palace, if you want," Austin told both Isabella and I. His body suddenly tensed and I knew why, for even my belly did a little flip-flop as a certain masculine scent hit me. James was closer now. He glanced at Isabella before his eyes returned to me. He walked past Austin and gently took my hand in his. "I hope you enjoy your stay with us." I felt tingles all throughout my arm by just the feel of his rough hand on mine. To my surprise, he took his thumb finger and gently rubbed on my skin. I gasped, completely shocked that such a simple touch could make my body ache with desire. He suddenly let go, too soon for my liking. My hand still tingled from his touch and a part of me, a part that I didn't know existed, wanted to pull his hand back and let him touch me as he pleased. I felt my cheeks burn at my wild thoughts. I'd never had these before. It felt like James had somehow awakened something deep within me, something that was buried and only waiting for him. "Alpha." All gazes turned towards the sound. There was a woman with light brown hair and blue eyes standing at the entrance. She was dressed in a short black dress that showed off her figure nicely. Her eyes glanced at me for a quick second, and for some reason, it seemed to me that she didn't like me. Surely, that couldn't be true. I didn't know that woman, she had no reason to dislike me. Then she gazed at James almost lovingly. The look in her eyes tore at me. I could feel jealousy stir at the sight. Mine. I froze. My wolf chose this time to get possessive and claim her mate? That was never a good sign. It meant that she also saw the same thing that I did. This woman wanted James. I didn't know how to feel about that. It wasn't like I would ever have the opportunity to be with him, but I still never thought about him being with someone else. I realized that everything hurt a lot more now that this thought had entered my mind. "What is it, Clara?" James asked as he approached her. "The pack wanted to discuss something important with you. I just thought that I should come tell you." His brow rose at her words. "Why didn't you just send it through the mind link?" Her cheeks flushed. "I was already close by." "Well, that's definitely a lie." Isabella mumbled next to me. I guess I wasn't the only one that saw straight through this girl. "Well, since James will be preoccupied, why don't we get some meat on the grill?" Austin asked. "I'll also show you two to your rooms. Lucy helped decorate the both of them for you." I forced a smile on my face. I felt my eyes narrow as I watched James leave with the Clara girl and heard myself sigh. I didn't think I was about to enjoy my stay here. We were out on the deck, overlooking the beautiful garden. Austin had meat on the grill and James had just returned from wherever he'd went with that Clara girl. He had on a white shirt with a few buttons opened at the top, showing off his smooth muscular chest. My face twisted as I thought about him being alone with that woman for more than an hour. The entire time he was gone, I couldn't focus on anything at all. I hated the way that girl had looked at him. Now I understood what James had to feel every time he saw me with Hunter. I didn't want to do that to him. It was unfair that we couldn't have our chance at love. I felt this bad knowing that another woman wanted my mate. How would I feel if I knew that he was marrying her? I had no words for how I would react then. "You look troubled," Isabella whispered next to me. "Are you sure you'll be okay?" Before we came here, Isabella and I had an entire conversation about James being my mate while getting married to Hunter. She knew how difficult it was for me to ignore him, but then again, almost everyone who knew that we were mates would understand how difficult it would be for the both of us. "I don't know," I whispered back. "Did you see the way that girl looked at him?" Isabella rolled her eyes. "I think everyone saw it except James." Her words bothered me. Was it that my mate didn't notice, or was it that he didn't have a problem with it? Isabella took my hand in hers and gently squeezed on it. "Everything's going to be okay." "What are you two lovely ladies whispering about?" Lucas asked as he took a seat on the chair to the front of us. "Can I join in?" "It really doesn't look like we have a choice in the matter, does it?" Isabella asked. "You're a smart one." Lucas teased with a click of his tongue. He was grinning at us. Unlike James, he always seemed to be in a jolly mood. There was this certain calmness about him. Whenever he was around, everyone always seemed to be in a better mood. He was extremely good at lifting everyone's spirits. Lucas was blessed in that way. I heard someone sigh and looked up just in time to see Lucy roll her long black hair into a bun before she took a seat next to us with a frown on her face. "I'm not allowed to do anything around here ever since I became pregnant," she complained. "He doesn't let me lift a finger," she argued while glaring at Austin's back. "I love you too, sweetheart," Austin shouted over his shoulder. "Come on, sister-in-law," Lucas said with that playful gleam in his eyes. "Where's that beautiful smile of yours?" Lucy immediately started laughing as she playfully hit Lucas on his arm, something I often saw her doing. The two of them seemed more like siblings than Lucas did with his own brothers. Sitting here, seeing the way Lucy glowed as she bonded with her mate's brother and the way Austin glanced at her as though she was the best thing that ever happened to him, it showed to me just how horrible the council actually was. The atmosphere here was very peaceful, nothing like back home. This was what a real happy family should look like. This was everything anyone trapped in the council would dream of. I understood now that separating from us must have been the best thing to have ever happened to Lucy. She got a chance at a real life, to build a happy family. Something that I wished I could somehow have with James. I knew it was impossible without a war, but I still let myself dream of a life with him here. I glanced at him when I thought no one was looking. To my surprise, he was already looking at me. The only difference was, he wasn't trying to hide it. I had to swallow the whimper that threatened to come out my mouth. The man was dangerous. I never knew that I would ever be this desperate for a man's attention. I forced myself to look away and tried to focus on the conversation in front of me. However, no matter how hard I tried, I could still feel James's penetrating gaze. I felt my skin prickle as my heart raced loudly against my chest. I couldn't do this. I couldn't focus on anything when James was only a few feet away from me. I couldn't take it. I wanted him. "I'm heading to my room," I told Lucy before I could stop myself. Her forehead creased and she instantly looked worried. "Is everything okay?" she asked. I nodded. "I'm fine, I'm just tired from the trip. I want to rest for a bit." She looked unconvinced but still managed to nod her head. "Do you want me to walk you to your room?" I shook my head. "I don't want Austin coming for my head. You stay here and rest." Before she could change her mind, I was already walking back into the palace. In order to do so, I had to walk past James. The moment I reached him, his scent almost knocked me over. It was all the motivation I needed to keep on going faster before I did something to embarrass myself in front of everyone here. "James," I watched Eden as she walked away. Her hips swayed as she moved and it was hard to look away. "Don't even think about it," Austin said in a warning tone. I quirked a brow. "Don't think about what?" I asked innocently. I was beginning to realize that there was no use arguing with Austin. I had to do things on my own now, with or without his permission. "You know what I'm talking about," he hissed. "Don't make me say it." I shrugged my shoulders and placed the glass of wine onto the glass table. "I'm just going to get another bottle of wine. As you can see, it's already empty." He narrowed his eyes suspiciously, not believing a word. "Just hurry back. If you're not back in 5 minutes, I'm sending Lucas to check on you." "I don't need a babysitter," I growled. Eden's scent was all over the palace. It was hard to concentrate on anything else when she was around. I couldn't even deal with the issue at the pack house without thinking about getting back here to her. I didn't like not being here when she was around. I didn't want to waste a single second of being around her. I'd caught her looking at me multiple times today, the need in her eyes didn't go unnoticed. She wanted me, that thought had my shaft tightening in my pants. I wanted to please her in many ways, all that ways that I could possibly think about. I couldn't remember the last time I've been this crazy about taking a woman, truth be told, this was the first time. I climbed the steps 2 at a time, Eden's scent grew stronger with each second that ticked by. I saw her a few seconds away from her room door and hurried my pace to reach her. I reached her in 2 long strides, my body acting on its own will. The moment I was by her side, I grabbed her hand and pushed her up against the wall. "What are you doing?" she gasped, her innocent eyes wide open. I placed both hands on the wall and leaned into her. "I needed a taste," I whispered. "A taste of what?" I covered her lips with mine, cutting her off. "Lord help me, a woman shouldn't taste this good. Eden, my very first kiss. It should have never been like this. I should have never let James kiss me. Now, I was scarred for life. I would never be contented with another man's lips on mine after this. My mate had ruined that for me. My body only wanted him, I was positive no one else would ever make me feel this way. I melted against his strong hold as I felt my body combust into flames. His mouth was gentle despite his rough grip on my waist. I expected his kiss to be a lot rougher than this, but it was nothing like that. James kissed me soft and slow, almost as though he was savoring the taste of me. He gave a small satisfied sound in the back of his throat, and I would be lying if I said it didn't make me want him more. He demanded entrance into my mouth and I let him have his way. His tongue plunged in and tangled with my own. James tasted me like he'd never tasted any woman like me before. He was taking all that I could offer and more. James suddenly broke the kiss and leaned his forehead against mine. "Please, don't shiver in my arms while you make those sweet moans. It makes me want to trap you against this wall." I gasped as I felt the immediate rush between my legs. James' eyes snapped to mine as his nostrils flared. The dark heated look in his gaze only dampened my panties further. We were both breathing hard now, both of us staring at each other. James looked as though he was having an inner battle within himself. There was a low whistle away from us and my cheeks grew red when I saw Lucas a little distance away. I should have brought the popcorn. James pushed away from me and stormed towards his brother. "Come with me," he snarled as Lucas winked at me. I watched them both go before I fell back against the wall. I couldn't believe that just happened. I placed my hand over my heart, it was still racing. I was surprised it hadn't jumped straight out of my chest yet. "James Austin isn't going to be happy about this," Lucas said with a smirk. I could already see the look on his face. I scowled at my brother. "Austin isn't going to find out." He tapped my shoulder. "Don't worry, big brother, I have your back." I shook my head at him as he pretended to zip his mouth with his hand before he walked back out onto the deck. I took a moment to lean back against the wall and gave my body a chance to recover from all of the feelings swirling through it. I could still taste Eden in my mouth. Her scent was all over my body and I loved every bit of it. I wanted to wake up every morning with her scent on me. I was so screwed. I thought just one taste would help drench the hunger inside of me, but I was so wrong. Now that I've tasted Eden, I didn't know how to stop wanting her. I wanted her more than ever. More than I've ever wanted anything or anyone in my life. I've always been one to control my emotions. Everyone knew how calm I could be in the most difficult situations. But with Eden, that was simply impossible. The woman controlled the switch to my emotions. Whatever she did affected me greatly. I was sure of one thing, I was not about to let Eden go. Not now, not ever. It was about time that everyone else understood that. After Clara called for me today, I stayed back at the pack house discussing the first plan with my pack. We'd come to the conclusion that we would join forces with other allied packs, in return we would offer our support to anyone that needed it. I would challenge the council when I thought I'd have enough on my side to give them a good enough fight and come out alive. I didn't mention anything to Austin. Lucas was the only one that knew. When the time came closer, then I would let my brother know of my plan. I didn't want him to crush my plans before I even started it properly. It would be better if he found out later when everything was already set. When I walked out into the deck, everyone looked up at me as if they already knew something had happened. Eden's scent would be all over my body. Lucy glanced at Austin before she resumed her conversation with Isabella and Lucas. I see you didn't listen to a word I'd just said. Austin said, using a tone my father usually used on me when he wasn't happy about my decisions. Would you leave Lucy alone if she was in a house with you and you knew that it could be the last few house you'll ever have with her before she marries? His shoulders tensed but he didn't respond. I thought so. I grabbed my glass from the table and stormed out the deck without another word. My body was still desperate for my mate. After just one kiss, I needed more. I felt like I would go insane if I didn't have more of her. Tonight, when everyone was asleep, Eden will be mine. Eden, I was still glowing from my kiss with James earlier today. I hadn't seen him since the kiss and I wondered whether or not he was avoiding me. I didn't think that he would, considering he didn't want to leave my side earlier. I laid on my tummy and buried my face against the pillow. After a few minutes, I was on my back. I'd been switching between those two positions for over an hour now. I stared at the ceiling while lightly touching my lips. Now that I had my first kiss with James, I wanted more. It was addictive. Kissing James. I heard a soft knock on the door and my eyes wandered to it with a frown. It was extremely late. Could something have happened? I held my robe tightly around my body as I rushed to open it. I gasped at the person I saw in front of me. James, I gasped. What are you doing here so late at night? His gaze was heated. I trembled at the desire I saw deep in his eyes as he scanned my body from head to toe. He made me feel like I was in front of him. You know we're not supposed to be seen together, I said with one hand over my chest and the other still holding onto the robe. I suddenly realized how exposed I was. James. It felt like he wasn't hearing a word I was saying. His eyes were glowing and there was this hungry look in the depths of it. To my surprise, he let himself in. I watched as he gently removed my hand from the door's handle and shut the door behind us. I gasped at the vulnerable look in his eyes as he turned to face me once more. Let me just hold you, he whispered. Please. I he gripped my waist lightly and tugged me towards him. I don't know when I'll ever have this opportunity again, Eden. I don't know how long I can stay away from you, he confessed. I'm trying. For your sake I'm trying. But I need this tonight. I didn't know what to do. On one hand, I wanted this as well, I wanted it a lot more than I should. However, I understood the dangers of letting something like this happen. I didn't know what Hunter had planned. We shouldn't be taking any chances. I still believed that he was up to something. There was also the fact that everyone was already against James and I having a close relationship while I stayed here. We could put our families in danger, something that I definitely didn't want to do. I knew that I should stop this, but the moment I gazed up into James's beautiful eyes, I was completely lost. I found myself nodding without a second thought. My body suddenly felt like a robot that was being controlled by him. I blinked up at him as his hands slid down to my waist. A small gasp escaped my mouth as he picked me up from the ground and walked me over to the bed. He was very gentle as he laid me down. I expected him to touch me or kiss me, but he did none of that. Instead, he did as he said he would and pulled me against his embrace. I was completely still as he buried his face in my neck and stayed there. I was breathing so loud that I was positive he was getting an earful. A few minutes later, I felt his hands slowly glide up my waist. I couldn't breathe or think clearly with his mouth there. I almost whimpered when he finally let go. I didn't want him to ever stop. His gaze zeroed in on the tattoo on my neck and I saw the anger and hurt in his eyes. I hated that look on his face. I wish things didn't have to be like this between us. To my surprise, he pulled the robe over my body once more and returned to his earlier position next to me. He still put his arms around me, but I could tell that he was angry, could feel it radiating off him in great waves. I didn't know what to say or do. I decided that it was best to just enjoy this little time that I had with him. I eventually sighed and relaxed in his embrace until I slowly drifted into a deep sleep. The next morning James wasn't by my side. I missed his presence a lot more than I was willing to admit. Last night was more than I could ever wish for. I was happy that I'd let him stay with me. After getting dressed, I stepped outside where everyone was already awake and having breakfast. My eyes immediately scanned the table for James. I found him at the furthest seat away from me and his eyes were already looking my way. I felt a blush creep up my cheek and had to look away. "Good morning, sleepyhead," Lucy teased. I smiled. "Good morning, sister." I noticed James's parents seated next to Lucas and Isabella as I took a seat next to Lucy. They must have returned from their trip today. "We're happy to have you as our guest, Eden," the Queen said with a friendly smile. "It's a pleasure to finally meet another one of Lucy's sisters." A woman with pretty eyes whispered across the table before I could respond to the Queen. She must be Maya, I silently thought. She was just as beautiful as her brothers were handsome. "It's a pleasure to meet you also," I responded with a smile. Maya seemed extremely kind and I was happy that Lucy had someone like her around when we couldn't be there for her. "Someone looks like they had a good sleep last night," Lucas commented suddenly. "There's a glow on your face I hadn't seen yesterday," he teased. Maya groaned. "Not this again," she mumbled. "Eden, please ignore my brother. He does this a lot." "Hey," he asked. "What did I say?" he demanded, feigning innocence. Lucas. James and Austin growled the same time. My body tensed as I heard commotion outside the palace. Judging by the look on everyone's faces, I wasn't the only one who'd heard it. The entire atmosphere was suddenly filled with a raging tension. Everyone's gazes went stone cold. Austin, James, and Lucas were already by the door before anyone could react. I tried to see around them. The scent that suddenly hit my nose seemed a lot more familiar than I would like it to be. Surely it wasn't. What are you doing here, Hunter? James growled. It was. Oh no. What was he doing here? Did he possibly know something already? There was this smirk on his face as he looked at James. As they stood in front of each other, it was easy to see just how powerful both men were. I hated the sight of both of them near each other. I feared that my mate would do something that could result in war between the council and our families. Hunter took a few steps forward. He was now close enough to reach James if he really wanted to. My future wife is here. What other possible reason do I need to be here as well? He asked. Unless you have some unknown reasons that you would like to bring forward. I saw my mate's body tense at his words. In fact, everyone saw it. If we all did, Hunter no doubt hadn't missed it. He always paid attention to small details. He was surely testing James. We had to stop this before he snapped and gave Hunter a reason to believe that we were mates. I made an effort to get up but stopped when I saw James take a step closer. You're not welcome in my home. He growled. James, the Queen said as she walked up to him. It's okay, Hunter can stay if he wants. He didn't look happy with his mother's interruption. In fact, his mouth was now set in a straight line and his fingers were pressed tightly against the palm of his hand. I understood why the Queen did that, however. She was only protecting her son. By James not welcoming him into the palace, it would look suspicious to Hunter. That is, if he hadn't already seen something. James and I were together multiple times yesterday alone. There were many occasions for Hunter to find something out. It could definitely be the reason why he decided to show up here unannounced today. But if that was the case, there was a high chance he wouldn't be here just to talk. Hunter hated to be double-crossed. He also took whatever it is he wanted whenever he wanted it. He wouldn't sit back and watch James and I destroy his reputation. That was the only thing that had me a little calm during this confrontation. Hunter nodded at the Queen and stepped around James. Even though he'd just admitted that he came to see me, the first person his eyes fell on was Isabella. Her back was turned to him but still he continued to gaze at her before he walked around the table to where I was sitting. How has your trip been going so far? He asked as he took a seat next to me. My hands shook as I tried to pick up the glass and drink some water. My actions didn't go unnoticed by Hunter. Nor did it go unnoticed by James. I glanced at him and immediately regretted it. The look on his face was painful to look at. I could see the pain and anger in his eyes as he glared at my shaking hands. I knew he wanted to be next to me. I knew he wanted to comfort me. However, there was nothing either one of us could do. I sucked in a breath and tried to remember the question Hunter had just asked me. It's been good so far. I only arrived yesterday. I forced myself to answer. It was hard not to stumble on my own words with the way my hand was still shaking. Hunter didn't respond and out of fear, I gazed up at him to see why he'd stopped talking. To my horror, his eyes were on James, the worst of my fears. There was this look of interest in his eyes that bothered me. I needed to find a distraction quickly, anything to stop him from suspecting my mate. Why did you decide to come all the way over here? He leaned back, his eyes now on Isabella and Lucas. They were both deep in some conversation, and by her awkward smile, I could tell that Lucas was talking some nonsense again. Lucy was right, once you were around Lucas enough, you would get used to his playful ways. The council asked me to come pay you a visit, he answered. I watched as his eyes narrowed when Lucas leaned a little into Isabella. His actions surprised me. I didn't think I was just overthinking things now. Hunter had some sort of interest in my sister. He was also not afraid to show it. Or, was it that he was unable to hide it? I just couldn't figure out what it was. I considered that maybe he was interested in her in a romantic way. However, that wouldn't make any sense at all. For I still didn't understand why he would marry me if he felt some sort of attraction towards my sister. They asked you to come here? Austin asked suspiciously. He didn't believe a word, neither did I. The council knew that James was my mate. They wouldn't want Hunter anywhere near us knowing that. They would fear that he would eventually find out that they knew that James was my mate all along and kept it from him. Hunter would see it as a betrayal. In that case, he could cut all ties with them. If that happened, my entire would surely be punished. Hunter tore his gaze away from Isabella and focused on Austin. You can ask them if you don't believe me, he challenged. I'm not staying long, you don't have to worry, he added when Austin didn't respond. As soon as he said those words, he threw his chair backwards. The furniture made a loud screech as it fell to the ground. I gulped and had to stop a hiccup. I hadn't expected him to get up so soon. To my surprise, he kept walking until he was standing behind Isabella. What was he doing? Isabella slightly turned and blinked up at him. Neither one of us was sure of what was happening. As soon as she met his gaze, he held it and didn't once let go. In those few seconds, I saw multiple emotions cross his face, each of them hard to read. We all watched in shock as Hunter reached down and lifted Isabella into his arms. He picked her up like she weighed nothing and walked with her to the fallen chair. He leaned down with her still in his arms and picked the thing of the ground before placing her onto it. The entire room went completely silent. All eyes on Hunter and Isabella. What do you think you're doing? James demanded. His eyes were shocked and pissed as he glared at Hunter as though he'd completely lost it. He was the first to break the silence between all of us. No one had dared to speak before this. Hunter didn't look like he was happy with his tone, but even then, his attention was still not on my mate. On a regular day, there would have already been a fight between both men after the way James had just spoken. But despite everything, Hunter's eyes was still completely on Isabella. I'm just making sure that my bride isn't lonely. I prefer that her sister is sitting next to her as opposed to any one of you men, he answered, his eyes never once leaving Isabella. Her cheeks were red, but she didn't look away from his penetrating gaze. He was supposedly referring to me, at least that's what everyone would think. I was his bride after all, but there was something in the way he looked at my sister. It made me believe that she was the one he didn't want any other men around. I had to have a talk with Isabella, I needed to know if she also realized that Hunter paid more attention to her than anyone else. No one said anything again after that. We couldn't. For everyone already knew what was happening between James and I. Hunter didn't seem to care about any of that, however, his attention was still fully on my sister. His eyes shut to Lucas, who seemed both confused and unbothered as to why Hunter was glaring at him. Without another word he stormed out the palace. He was angry and he made no move to hide it. Will you please excuse me?" Isabella said as she headed straight for her room. "Never a dull moment, hey?" Lucas asked as he took a bite out of the apple in his hand. Everyone shook their heads at him. "Well, that was intense," Maya commented while fanning herself with her hand. After the incident, everyone went their separate ways to deal with the security at the palace. Apparently, this wasn't the first time someone had gotten in so easily into the palace. Which meant, they needed to change their guards. Maybe appoint people from their packs to help out instead. I was in the kitchen grabbing something to drink when I felt someone behind of me. I already knew whom it was even before I turned to find James looking at me. "Come with me," he said suddenly. "Where?" I asked. "There's this lake in the forest that I love to visit, it helps clear my mind, I want to take you there with me." "I'm not sure if that's a good idea." "Please," he pleaded. "Just this once." I sighed, and after looking around to confirm that no one was present, I finally nodded my head. The smile on his face made my insides melt. We took his jeep and drove as far into the forest as it could go. "It's only like a 10 minutes walk from here," James informed me as he opened the door and helped me down. I swallowed, his scent overwhelming. Even though my feet was now on the ground, James made no move to let me go. His hands were still gripping my waist tightly and his gaze was lost in my eyes. My breath hitched when he touched my lips with his fingers. His eyes darkened a shade and I could see the hunger there I'd gotten so used to. "James," I whispered. "We can't do this. You're mine, Eden." "You saw what happened today," I reminded him. "Hunter didn't just come to say hi, it was his warning and you know that. I'm not willing to put neither your family nor mine in trouble just because of my selfish needs." His eyes narrowed. "Selfish?" he asked. "Is it selfish to want the woman that was made just for you? The only woman that can make your heart beat the way it does when it's filled with love. Is that so wrong, Eden?" he demanded. He grabbed my hand and placed it directly above his heart. "It beats only for you," he insisted. "Why can't you see that?" "I have to go," I whispered. I made an attempt to leave, but he grabbed my arm and pushed me straight back against the jeep. "I won't let you do this to us, Eden," he whispered. "I won't let you throw away what we have, and I would never let Hunter have you." "James, please," he covered my plea with his mouth. This kiss was nothing like the last, it was rough and intoxicating. James kissed me like it was our last time together, like we would never see each other after today. His hands reached between my legs and his fingers pushed my underwear aside. I gasped as he grazed my opening. James groaned and leaned his forehead against mine, "So wet for me. Just for me." I gripped his shoulders to keep my balance. I didn't know what was happening to my body, but it felt amazing. Sparks flew off everywhere and I couldn't stop James even if I wanted to. "Say you're mine, Eden."
tell me you're mine, not his." He growled possessively against my ear. I gasped as he pushed a finger into my wet folds. I can't," I managed to gasp out. "I'll have you eaten." He growled angrily. "If I have to destroy the entire council to have you, I will." With those words, he pulled his finger out from between my legs and pushed away from my body. I hated the defeated look on his face. I didn't like having to do this to him. I didn't want to push him away, it hurt whenever I did. I wanted to stop him. I wanted to beg him to come back to me, but I was frozen on the spot. All I could do was watch him walk away from me. I had no idea where he was going, but I assumed our trip to the lake was now completely ruined. Suddenly, my wolf was on high alert. We were definitely not alone in the woods, there were others closing in on us. My eyes widened at what I saw next. I took my time evaluating my surroundings. We were completely surrounded, there were 7 men all around us, preventing us both from going anywhere. These men looked familiar. If I remembered correctly, these were Hunter's men. The ones I'd seen with him the first day we had met. Well, isn't this interesting? I spun around and found Hunter looking between James and I. Oh no! This couldn't be happening. Please, no.
Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.